حسيتك بالإكس بي.
Hello, Elle. How are you?
Hi, Lexi. I'm very well, thank you. How are you? So
I'm
good to
good.
see you. You're
I
so beautiful.
know. Oh, thank you. You too.
Color. I love all your color.
We are a colorful family, Elle. We are a colorful family. I
I
do
love.
want to start and acknowledge your wallpaper. Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's fabulous. And I know that you are an interior designer, so I'm assuming you chose it.
I did, and
Okay.
I chose the colors. It's actually hand painted,
Gosh.
and so what they do, it is paper, but they hand draw it and then they paint it also. So, and I chose each of the colors on here.
Wait,
So
you can do that? So you basically created your own wallpaper.
yeah, so they had this design. But I changed it up a little bit to be more conducive to what I like and what I wanted for my home. So that's
I
what
love
I did.
that. Okay, folks, you can hear that. You can make your own wallpaper. I didn't know that. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's so
Yeah,
adorable.
thank you.
Before we get into the conversation that we're going to talk about today, which is really about how to get your business paperwork ready, I wanted to
Okay.
ask you, where are your people from?
Well, my people actually originated from Nova Scotia. My
Okay.
father is French.
Okay.
And so that's where my people are from. And we ended up in Louisiana. My father was in oil and gas industry until the day he passed. And God rest him,
Mhm.
rest in peace. But they, but that's where we were initially. And then I moved to Dallas, Texas when I was like 10, almost 11, and have been here in Dallas ever since. But my roots started in Louisiana, but our family heritage comes from Nova Scotia because we have a French background. My grandmother spoke French, my father spoke French, and all of that. So we have a little bit of fieriness in us, I guess to say.
Well, then I guess if we're going to talk about Louisiana and Texas, we have to talk about food because both places, very food centric, but very different food cultures. So I'm hoping that when you came to Texas, you also brought some seafood boils and some Creole seasoning. But what did that look like in your home as a Louisianian and a Texan? So barbecue and crawfish? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's both actually, but because really I consider myself a Southerner.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
my roots are very Southern tradition. So family is hugely important to me, and
Mm-hmm.
having Southern roots and knowing where you came from and valuing the family lineage is really important to me. And it was to my mother and father as well, and my grandparents. So, but the food in our family is very diverse. And my children were not raised on chicken nuggets. I assure you that. They had a very sophisticated palate by the time they were, little young ones, because we had introduced them to all different types of
Mm.
food. So we had in the winters we had, etouffee and gumbo
Yes.
cooking on the stove, and then in the summers we would have, our crab boils and that sort of thing, and then lobster and clam bakes and things like that. So during the summer, so we're very diverse, and my children still love different foods.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like the regular kids. Oh, let me have, like I said, chicken nuggets or that sort of thing. Not into fast food, but they love really good restaurants, and just having a sophisticated palate at an early age, I think, has really made them better because they're more rounded and they're not just stuck in one line of just American food, I guess to say.
No, I agree with you. I think that, as a person with Southern roots, as we've talked about myself, I always tell folks that when you come from a very seasoned food culture, okay,
Yes.
regardless
That's
of
a
what
great way to put it.
you come from a seasoned food culture, your palate is already very sophisticated because you expect certain things on the table and you expect certain layers of seasoning. And when it's
Yeah.
not there, it's a problem, right?
Yes.
So I really appreciate that. And I do dabble in a good crawfish etouffee.
Oh, good.
I do love crawfish etouffee. So
Love it.
let's get into it. So you own an interior design company. You've been doing this for a long time. You also do a lot of the volunteer work in interior design, which we are going to talk about later because I do want to highlight that. But I want to talk to you about when you actively decided to start your own firm and your own business. Did anyone sit down with you and say, "Hey, Elle, this is such a creative, great idea. Before you do anything, let's get some business paperwork in place"? Or did you just figure that out along the way?
Yeah. So, I had a little bit of advice. I do admit that, which was very, very helpful to me,
Mm-hmm.
because do have entrepreneurs in my family.
Mm,
And so getting that advice from them was essential to me setting my business up successfully. Um,
mm-hmm.
but I do think even with the best advice, you will eventually have to figure things out on your own, right?
Right.
So, but I do believe it's crucial to, if you are thinking of starting your own business as entrepreneur and getting into this, I feel that it would be crucial for someone starting out to sit down with different entrepreneurs in different industries, right?
Okay.
Because I feel, not just your industry, because I think you having different perspectives to
Mm,
entrepreneurialism and how others have overcome obstacles and that sort of thing in their business is always going to be helpful to you. And the
mm,
more you open your mind and become a little bit more diverse in entrepreneurs that you sit down and have discussions with, I think more well-rounded you're going to be and more educated and a better business person you will
mm.
be. So,
So
um,
what types of things, let's build a fake business right now. So you and I are going to go into business together right now in our hypothetical
yes,
business.
yes.
What are a few things that we should start out with paperwork wise? I'm assuming some kind of bank account, either LLC or S corp. I'm just making that up. But what things should we be looking at to make sure this business money can come through, money can go in and out, the IRS doesn't come get us, that we have things written down. What's good practice of governance?
So I think good practice and governance would be to find yourself a CPA,
Okay.
and because you will have to file taxes, right? And
Yes.
that's yearly, and you will have to file federal taxes as a corporation or LLC. So find yourself a good CPA, a bookkeeper. The
Mm,
CPA will help you to understand what type of legal structure is going to be best suited for you as a business owner. So
got it.
whether that's a sole proprietorship, a partnership, like you and I would be going into a partnership, limited liability company, which is the LLC,
Mhm.
or corporation or S corp. A CPA can sit down with you and talk to you about what your vision is and what your goals are for the next, year to 5 years, and help you decide, okay, I can start out as an LLC. That'll give me some protection as a business owner. And then maybe 5 years down the road, when I get to a certain point of maybe hitting the $1 million mark or whatever, then I might want to consider transitioning my company into an S Corp, because that's going
Mhm.
to offer different types of tax benefits for you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so I would start there.
Mhm.
And then I suggest you write. a business plan. It doesn't have to be very detailed. And then also, you can also Google for a business plan template, and that can assist you in doing that. And then you would need to file for your FEIN, which is your federal identification number, so employer identification number, and you file that with the Secretary of State, which you'll have to go on. You can go online and do that now. But those are some of the important things besides opening up a bank account. So I would first start with the CPA, decide how your legal structure is going to be set up, then file for your FEIN number, and you'll need to know what your company name is going to be. Don't make it anything complicated, right? Because you want people to remember your name. If it's very complicated, they're not going to remember it. You want it to take someone 3 seconds to remember. If it's your first name or your last name, whatever it is, you want them within 3 seconds to remember who you are. I mean, think about the major brands like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Apple, IBM, all of those companies, like Facebook. I mean, within seconds, you recall their name because it's very easy. And the reason why I say that is because we're so bombarded every day with marketing and just ads and busyness of life that you don't want to make your company name complicated, so then they won't recall you when they need you, right? You want them to always think of you when either they're thinking about, design. I want people to think of Elle. They don't have to remember Elle Cole Interiors, right? But I want them to remember Elle. And so that's what I push more of with my clients. Just call me Elle, and they remember that. So, because it's not difficult. We need things simplified now. So, does that help?
No, it helps amazingly. And then I wanted to, if a follow up to that is, you did name your company after you. I know a lot of people who do and do not. I did not name my company after me. I actually named my company after my grandmother's, but still in the same vein. I guess my question to you is that when you were deciding your company name, which, you need that in order to file this paperwork to your LLC, your S Corp, they are going to say what the company name is. What was your process to decide this is going to be the name, or was it just always instantly for you, Elle?
For me, it was always instantly my name, because in interior design, your design is a reflection of you, right? Your design, your company is a reflection of you. If I was presenting a product, that would be different. But in design, because it's such a creative industry, and what we do is very artistic, we are the product. I am the product, right? So I would have to remove myself from that, because this is my creative genius when I am designing for someone, because I am taking their stories and creating something even beyond their expectations. So it's me taking all of that information with my experience, expertise, and knowledge and background, and developing and artistically creating a story that is visually tangible, right, to the client. So that is why I decided to, from the get-go, to name it, just after me.
I think there's power in a name, right? Well, number one, I think that when a baby comes earthside, the fact that one of the first things we do is name it. I think there's power in naming things and in naming humans. And I think it's very powerful when people put their name behind their brand. It's like, for better or worse, it is a brand.
Exactly.
A lot of accountability, but I also think it's important. I was talking to an intern a few days ago, and I said, I'm really tired of people being humble in capitalism. Like, capitalism was not made to be humble. And I think that one way to look at that is put your name on the stuff that you do.
Yes.
and take stock on it and be proud of it and be accountable for
Right.
it. So I think it's also deeper. So we have our name.
Yes.
We decided on how we're going to, like, what type of bank money is going to go in and out.
Yes.
What's the next step for paperwork? What do we do next as business owners, as entrepreneurs?
So after you set up your bank account and that sort of thing, then you want to make sure that you have a lawyer that you can have represent you in case you do run across, business issues or legalities. It's really important to have that relationship, and one that is specific to your industry, right? That deals with contracts. Because whenever you are working with someone, there should always be a contract to state clearly what the terms, what the deliverables are going to be between the two parties, right? Because you want it to be a win-win situation. But at the same time, you also want to protect yourself in case there's a situation that arises that you may not be anticipating, right? And it's really important for you to have legal advice to say, okay, help me write a contract. This is the kind of business I'm going to be doing, whether it's interior design, whether it's marketing for someone, all of that. It's really important to obtain legal advice and a good attorney that you can count on, not just for writing your legal contracts, but should the need arise later on in the future.
So that's interesting because one, I'm so glad you brought up the lawyer because, so many times I have seen where I'm like, fam, you need a lawyer, right? But I want to go deeper into that because I think we both have to acknowledge that most entrepreneurs, when they start businesses, they don't have all the money in the world. And so I love that what you're saying is that, look, even with your limited resources, if you have it, maybe pay a few hours for a lawyer, even just to get advice in that moment. Can you speak more to that? Why that's important?
It's super important because, when you're dealing with dollars and people's money, it gets serious. People become very different versus, you're coming over for a dinner or we're just hanging out over coffee, right? But when you start like managing people's finances and managing their money in exchange for a service, it becomes a very serious business. And you have to be very serious about protecting yourself and covering yourself. And I recall, my father telling me this, and back in, the 60s and 50s or whatever, he would do business on a handshake, right? Because my father always backed his word. Like he would never write a contract, but he said as time went on and as things change, society changes, right? People change, environment changes. He felt that there's a need for contractual agreements, right? Which it is. It's very important, even if it's just friend to friend. And that may sound cold, but it really isn't. It's really a way to protect the friendship, but also say, I value you and I value this agreement that we're going into because I want it to be a win-win, not just for me, but also you. Right. Because I feel like we can do this great thing together, whether it's a friend, whether it's, a business acquaintance, whoever it is, the agreement should be looked at as this is a mutual relationship, that it's not one or the other and one is not getting up one on another, right? But we're coming together saying we truly want to work together and we want to be productive in this. So let's make it wonderful from the start and have an agreement that outlines all of the details, what you're going to deliver, what they are going to deliver. And then you can move from there into knowing that there's trust there and that you can successfully follow through on everything that you have promised within that agreement. Because really, truly, at the end of the day, it is a promise, a verbal and a written promise that you are making to that individual that you will deliver, and you will follow through on your word.
Well, it also, I mean, sounds like, not to get into the weeds, but it sounds like Papa L had probably gotten burned. So he's coming to the table with his word. And it sounds like the fact that he, let's say, evolved the way he did business. To me, it sounds like something happened where that evolution, and he had to sit there and say, you know what, I just can't be doing handshakes anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like even though you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a lot of money coming out of the gate, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are resources that you can go to that can help you. There's legal aid that you can tap into to help you. If you attended at a university, there's should be a legal department that you can go to, or even the library. Even the library, like those researchers can really help you get, like contract templates. And then also there's so many free resources online. What are some of I can't recall some of the off the top of my head, but there are legal, form companies that you can go to and pay $30 and they'll give you a business contract. But I feel like you always should consult with an attorney to make sure that you're thinking of all the different types of scenarios where you would need to protect yourself. And then I always recommend never have it go through a court system, but always through, what is the word I'm looking for? You don't have to go to court for it, but oh my gosh, a mediator. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's, talk about that with your attorney. You will need legal advice for that. I'm not giving you any legal advice, but, I'd recommend having a mediator instead of, going to court, because your expensive legal fees will be outrageous. So,
I'm so glad we're talking about this, because as you speak, I'm thinking about my business and how it was concepted and how it was put together. And in true candor, y'all, I did not have everything in place and had to learn the hard way. Yeah. And what I tell people when they ask me advice, Elle, is I'm like, if you have the money, spend it before you start, because you're going to lose more money when you mess up. Exactly. And so for me, part of my business is my speaking. I do a lot of speaking. And I remember when I first started having contracts, I thought I was big and bold and smart and intelligent and I could do it, right? So all of my contracts were very simple. Like, I'm going to come on this date. I'm going to speak. It's going to be an hour engagement. This is how much it costs. I'm going to be paid. I had no written language about, like, when should I get paid?
Yeah.
What happens if a tornado and hurricane, right, and dinosaurs come back on the day of my speaking engagement? Do I still get something? Do I get paid? Do I not get paid? Do I get 50%? What happens if we sign this contract and then next week you decide that the event is over for so many reasons, because life's, right?
Yes.
Do I get paid? Like, what are all these things? And so I had to learn the hard way through many different scenarios over like a 3-year period. And then at one point I just said, you know what? I'm not learning the hard way anymore, because I'm losing so much money. I went to a lawyer. I think I paid $1,500 for like 2.5 hours of just advice. And when I tell y'all, this man just wrote me my contract and put all of the possibles, like mammoths coming back to life, Jurassic Park actually being a thing, like people just not letting me in the building, the scenarios that I could never think about so I can be protected. And at the time I had just started my business. So $1,500 was a lot of money for me. Yeah. Looking back on it, I wish I just did the 1,500 before I even started, because I think, to be very transparent, I probably lost about $70K trying to do it myself, y'all.
Yes. So, and that's really smart that you do say that, because it is worth every bit of money that you put into it. It's one thing to waste the $1,500 on a handbag that you may use every now and then. But when you invest in yourself and give yourself the best from the get-go, you will not regret that investment. And so, and you know, I always remember my grandmother telling me, and I'll have all these little scenarios, but you know, I feel so fortunate, but my grandmother would always tell me that the investment in yourself is always worthwhile, and it will always pay dividends far that exceed your expectations. So never be afraid to invest in your knowledge, in yourself, in protecting yourself. Because if you don't, no one else will. So I feel like just having her tell me that and not really understanding it at the time, but later on in life, really understanding what she meant by that. I feel like that was just a pot of gold to have that advice.
Yeah, isn't it wild? The beautiful thing about grandparents and elders is they tell you this stuff when you're like 3, so it doesn't make sense. But then when you grow up, and you start coming together, and you're like, oh, that woman was right. That woman was right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's important for entrepreneurs not to allow the money to prevent them from moving forward for something that is going to be helpful for them in the long run. Right? Because I think we get too consumed with the dollars instead of allowing our mind to be opened up and say, okay, what resources are out there that I can tap into? What other ways can I accomplish getting this contract done without paying $5,000, right? So even if you have like a friend or a colleague, and like tell people what you're trying to do and say, you know, I don't have this much, but this is what I'm trying to do. And I guarantee the doors will start to open for you beyond your expectations, with people truly wanting to help you. So don't keep your dreams to yourself, but tell them, because if you just keep them to yourself, then no one is ever going to know, right? You have to let it be known for people to be able to help you and be receiving of the help.
Let's pivot to that, because what you said was so transformative, is that when you keep your dreams to yourself, no one can help you, especially in this age of social media where you could literally go on a social media platform and just say, I need help. And the number of random people that will respond, make sure you vet them. Not everybody is your friend, but the fact that you have so much reach, right? 20, 30 years ago, you would have to open up a yellow book and call people. So if possible, I would like for you to tell the story of how you started your business. Because I remember when we first met, you told me the story, and I think it's so transformative and also so aligned to this idea of just tell people what you want to do, and you will be surprised who will raise their hand and say, you know what, I got you. Let me show you how I can help you. How did Elle Cole Interiors get started?
Well, it's a very jagged way that I got started. It wasn't streamlined, you know, but I was in, my background is in economics. So I studied economics, and but I had a minor in art history, and I had always had a love for creativity, always a passion for the arts. And but I also felt like, oh, I need to be, you know, very smart about this future of mine, because if I'm, you know, too, you know, eccentric, then I'm not going to accomplish the things I want to. So let me be smart and study economics, and then maybe I'll venture out at some point. So I did that for quite some time, and I just felt really depleted emotionally, just physically. I felt depleted of creativity, of being happy. And so I just said, there's got to be another way. And so then that's when I started thinking, you know, I really love design. It has always been a passion of mine, just in growing up. always loved beautiful interiors and just the arts. I just had a passion for it. And so, I decided, okay, maybe I'll do something about it. And so I started talking with my husband about it. And then I said, I don't know if this is so smart. So I saved up some capital in case I was going to do it. And one day like I mentioned to you before, I was sitting with one of my mentors and at a coffee shop and was talking with her. And I said, I have this crazy idea that I really want to explore this side of design. I really want to do it. And I said, I feel like I sound like a crazy person, because I've done this for so long. I've been working in business and corporate life and mergers and acquisitions. And, I was pretty successful. And I said, but I need to, know that I'm not so crazy. And so, she said, she goes, I don't know, really. She goes, what are you waiting for? Like, this is where you're meant to be. She goes, you have a passion for it. You can really excel at it. And I know once you put your heart and soul into something, you can accomplish it. And she goes, I don't really know what you're waiting for. And she goes, maybe you're waiting for permission, but you don't have to have our permission. Like you can give yourself the permission to do it. And so that really hit me at that moment because I felt like she was really right. I had been waiting for others to give me permission.
Okay.
And that's not so great, because I do believe in myself. And I mean, like I've had some, struggles in my life, and so I just felt like, she's right. I can do this. I do believe in myself, and who better to bet on me than me, like when am I going to let myself down? Right. Never. I think back, there may be some times where I failed, but did I really let myself down? Not really. I learned a lesson in all of it. And so having that conversation with my mentor and just her saying, like, what are you waiting for? And then I come home to my husband and I said, I really had an interesting conversation. and then he goes, I've been thinking the same thing. What are you waiting for? And he goes, I got you. Like, you cannot fail at this. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to be okay. And so he goes, you just need to do it. Like, just do it. And so that it really gave me the courage to do it. It like really lit the fire. And I said, okay, I'm doing this. And I found an ad in the newspaper. Now I'm really dating myself.
A physical newspaper. They used to come to the house. Yes.
Exactly. So I found an ad that an infamous architect, was running in the paper for an interior designer. And so I was like, okay, well, this is a sign. So I picked up the phone and I called him. I got him on the phone. I was not expecting to talk with him. I was expecting to talk with his secretary or someone else. So I spoke with him. I convinced him to meet with me. And I told him, I said, look, I have no experience, but I just need 5 minutes of your time. Just 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. And I promise, if you don't like anything that I have to say, I will leave. I will not call you again. I will not hound you, but just give me 5 minutes. And he said, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. So before I met with him the next week, I went rogue and I sent him this package with my resume, everything. And I met with him the next week and I was so nervous. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? And you know how you have these talks with yourself, like,
Yes.
what is going on here? But I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, going to do this, and I'm not backing away. He's giving me 5 minutes, so I'm going to make the most of these 5 minutes. And so I talked like myself through this whole process up until that day we met. And I wrote down questions and did research and all of that to make sure I was prepared for my 5 minutes, because I mean, you know, darn sure I was not going to waste my 5 minutes. So anyway, so I went in there and we started having the conversation, and I said, I just want to tell you up front that I've saved up capital. I don't need to be paid, and you don't have to pay me. I just want the opportunity to learn. I said, I will do whatever it is that you put in front of me. I said, I will make it work. I will work till late hours and in the early morning if I have to, but I will do the work, and I will do it with excellence in every way. And so I think he was taken back, because he was like, oh my God, like, just like, where is this girl coming from? Right. And so anyway, so we had this 5-minute conversation that turned into an hour or so long conversation. And he ended up hiring me before I left that day. And it was the best decision, the best phone call I had ever made for that point in my life, for my career in interior design, because it truly changed the trajectory of my life. And I thank him every single day that I get to do what I love and what I'm passionate about, because he taught me from an architectural standpoint of how to look at design and classicism, and how that affects our environment and the way we feel as individuals in our spaces. And that was so invaluable to me. I cannot even express in words how invaluable that was, just having that experience with him, to where I am today. And it has helped me every single time I do a project, having that knowledge and having that experience of knowing how to do CAD, drawing CAD, how to 3D model, how to do hand modeling, I use it every single day in my projects. And so I thank him, because I owe him everything that's been successful from that point forward.
I love that. Tell me about, as you were speaking, you mentioned your husband's support.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, Elle, that if they plan on having a life partner, okay, and a career and whatever that is, you need to make sure that human really has your back. So what I want to know from you is, how did you know that your husband would have your back like this before you needed him to have your back?
You know, that's
how do you pick someone like that? Because I'm also very fortunate. I have a human like that too. So I'm always the one preaching, like, find somebody who has your back. And they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Pray about it. But you need it.
Yeah.
So how does that manifest in your life? Yeah.
I think it's knowing, having understanding of who you truly are.
Ooh,
and understanding what your values are as an individual, right? Because if your values and your partner do not add up or line up, right? Align, and your beliefs and the vision that you have for yourself, then it will not go as smoothly, right? You have to have an alignment of values and a belief system. So say, for example, you believe in philanthropy, like taking care of others, right?
Okay.
But your partner is not very interested in that and has no interest in helping others. And they feel like, oh, it's just me first, and then everybody else can take care of themselves. It's not going to line up. You're not going to be aligned because you're always going to have a conflict of interest, right? A conflict of why do you not feel like philanthropy is important? Because you, even though it's you thinking like a me first attitude, you have been helped along the way, right?
Yep.
If it wasn't for the efforts of other people giving you a hand in your career, in your life, if it wasn't for your parents or whatever, helping you along the way, then you wouldn't be where you are now, right? So you have to find a partner who values not just having good relationships, but also valuing what you value, right? Whether it's philanthropy, whether it's, the arts or whatever. And I'm not saying everything is going to align because it's not, right? And that makes it beautiful because we celebrate differences, right? We should celebrate differences. But if you're completely opposite as far as where your values lie, like he doesn't value family, but you do, and it's like the center of your world, it's not going to be a problem. Yeah, it's going to be a serious problem. And so I feel like my husband and I really align with each other. And I am a little bit more hardened than he is, but he's more of a softer place for me. Okay. Right. So I think that is I think that's very important, is to know that you can have a partner that you can rely on, who is not going to be judging of you, but be accepting of you in your beautiful and then your ugly ways, right? That's so important because we're so imperfect. But I think when you have someone who's saying, I will back you, I will protect you, and I will stand for you when you can't stand for yourself, is really important in finding that partner. And I think those are conversations that you can have before you make the step into engagement or marriage, right? So
I feel like I want to sing Celine Dion's "Because You Love Me," because that's basically what you just said. But yes, and the reason why I bring it up, because this platform that I've created is not necessarily a romance platform, but I do believe that if we're going to talk about the lessons in life, we have to talk about how you pick a human to be with, if that's your jam. Because I do think if you pick the wrong human, life is going to be a lot harder than it already is.
It is. It's going to be very difficult. And I think too, it's not just picking the right partner, right? But also when you're doing business with someone, do their values align? So it's not just in relationships, because you will have like intimate relationships, but it's also business relationships that you should look for those clients or those people that align with your value system and your belief system, right? So that's really important for you to understand what is important to you and what is your value system, because that makes up your character and who you are.
Yeah, I think it's all about integrity, what you just said. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
So I could talk to you all day. We are coming to a close, but I do have to ask one more question. I would like you to reintroduce yourself. So who are you? Who is Elle Cole?
Well, my name is Elle Cole. I am the founder of Elle Cole Interiors. I am very passionate about interior design and helping others and my clients live gracefully. So, but I'm a Southern lady at heart. I love my Southern roots. So, I love Southern food.
Oh, duh. I've actually never met somebody who doesn't like Southern food, and I'm not going to lie. Well, I'm very big on people are allowed to have opinions. Yes. I would have an issue with that human. I'd be like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. There's some trauma that we need to unpack. That's weird. But
yeah. So thank you. Yeah, but I think I value the fact of everyone living gracefully, regardless of your socioeconomic status. I think that's super important, which is why I do the philanthropic work that I do, because it's very important to me.
Yes, we didn't have time to get into it, but I do want to
No,
put it in the show notes that your firm also volunteers their time, effort, creativity to design the homes of people who were previously homeless, and to make sure that they land not only in a home, but that home represents them. And I think that's so beautiful,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I do want to honor that. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's very important. It's very important. We all deserve that.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Lexi. It's such an honor. I love talking with you. Like, we could talk for hours, days.